Jarvis, drop my needle.
Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am SportsLogos.net minor league baseball correspondent Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Sunday Helmet Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado. This week, we're going to be talking about the High-A Aberdeen IronBirds, a Baltimore Orioles affiliate who play in Aberdeen, Maryland. Later on in this episode, I'm going to be speaking with their in-house designer, KJ Jimenez, and I'll be speaking with Dan Simon, who's here with another of his Studio Simon stumpers. Right now, I am so pleased to be joined not only by the general manager of the Aberdeen IronBirds, but a former player of the team. Jack Graham, how are you doing? Thanks so much for being here.
I'm excellent. Thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me on the show.
Well, I'm super pleased to be talking to you about this. I want to delve into this first. I don't know that I've ever spoken to a general manager of a team who was a former player. You played for a couple of seasons 8-10 years ago.
Yeah.
What is it like being the general manager of a team that you used to play for?
You know, it's great because I was not a tremendously talented professional baseball player. Viewers should not look up my statistics. I was an okay Division III baseball player who got a shot to ride the bus for a few years. And so when I got to Aberdeen, I played with Austin Wynns and Chance Sisco and Jonah Heim, and all of those guys ended up being big leaguers as catchers. And so as the fourth guy in that group, plus there was another guy who was also a catcher here in Aberdeen over the course of that 2013 season, I didn't have a tremendous amount of opportunities on the field, but I got to see how a minor league baseball team works, right? You know, ceremonial first pitches, sponsor meet and greets on the field, post-game kids run the bases. I really learned a ton from the IronBirds about what minor league baseball is like outside of the 9 innings of baseball, right? Outside the white lines. And so I came into working for the Ripken baseball organization after my playing days, and I at least had an inkling of, okay, this is more than just baseball. And so it's been really fun that now in my 9th summer with the club to be working on the other side of it and having worked my way up to be general manager.
So when you played with the team, in 2013 was the first season where they had what I have always thought of as the Sam Eagle logo. It was a logo I liked very much. It reminded me of the Muppet character, Sam Eagle. You know,
Yes.
It was, you know, a much more serious brand, you know,
Yeah.
with the eagle, the sort of this very metallic looking eagle and the
Yes.
metallic colors. And that replaced a brand that the team had from 2002 to 2012 with this sort of cartoony airplane jet fighter that has since been reprised as of last season, or at least a version of it, sort of the natural descendant of that logo that lasted for 11 years. You were with the team, you know, you played with the team under the Sam Eagle logo, not Sam the Eagle, by the way. It's like Smokey Bear. There is no the in Smokey Bear. There is no the in Sam Eagle. But you played with that Sam Eagle brand, and now as general manager, you oversaw a transition into a much different, a much more kid-friendly, much more sort of cartoony brand.
Yes.
This is a podcast about minor league baseball logos. What was your thinking in sort of guiding that process along of changing the brand, the whole sort of nature of the brand of this team?
Sure. Honestly, it felt really natural when it was happening. So you're right that we call it the Angry Bird logo.
Nice.
Not to rip off the app that I spent way too much time on 5 years ago, but we looked at that logo and we looked at how it sort of felt out of place in a 2010s, early 2020s sort of environment in minor league baseball that spawned teams like the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp and the Akron Rubber Ducks and the Rocket City Trash Pandas, teams that had really approachable, friendly logos. And so we felt like it was sort of an opportunity for us to bring that next generation of IronBirds fan into the fold. I love what you say, kid friendly and cartoonish, because that's exactly what the goal. We were trying to be something that people did not feel was intimidating. Win or lose, the team should be a brand that people can feel comfortable being a part of. And our graphic designer, who I think you're going to talk to later, KJ Jimenez, he came to us from the Brooklyn Cyclones, having done a tremendous amount of work for them over the 15 or 16 years he was with them. And when he came into the fold, he looked at that old fighter jet logo from the first 10-11 seasons, and he said, I think I can help. I think I can take this and revitalize it. He gave it a second eyeball, which it was always very weird that we had a Cyclops logo airplane. He beefed it out a little bit. It's a little chubbier, fluffier, friendlier looking. It's got a smile on the face. And we call him Ace the Jet. And nice. He's so friendly. And we actually introduced him starting, I want to say like 2019 was the first time we used him on like a piece of giveaway merch or something. And so he's so great. And we started sort of slowly introducing him. And when we went to put him on a hat, Major League Baseball said, hey, is this trademark protected? And we said, oh, we probably should do that. And so we went through the process, we got it done. And we planned a couple of years ago to have 2021 be the first year of that rebrand. So we said, okay, 2020, we're going to have the last year of the Angry Bird logo. We're going to play through the summer. 2021 being the 20th season, it was planned to be the 20th season, we will unveil this new logo. Well, 2020, no baseball. 2021, we finished out one more year with the Angry Bird logo, and 2022, which was not only the 20th season, but also the 20th anniversary because of the missed season. Right. We got to debut this awesome new suite of graphics. So it's a long-winded way of saying, it sort of just happened, which I think is the best way for that sort of thing to happen.
I kind of feel like every baseball team should skip one season so that the 5th anniversary and the 5th season are the same year, because it leads to a lot of confusion, right? Like
it does. People have to do math, and then you don't want to ask anybody to do that.
Exactly. So it's interesting to me. You named a couple of examples of teams that had sort of wacky brands. You said the Jumbo Shrimp, the Rubber Ducks, and the Trash Pandas, all grandiose brands.
Yes.
But you chose to work in-house with KJ, who, like you said, I'll be speaking to later on in this episode. That is, that sort of bucks the trend that you see in minor league baseball. There's a handful of firms out there that are all doing great work. And there's the branding that you see from these big firms is, I think, responsible for a real revolution in minor league baseball logos.
For sure.
The decision to go in-house, obviously you have a talented designer who, came to you with a lot of experience from another team, by the way, that had a not real cartoony logo, right? The Cyclones.
Correct.
Is pretty serious. What led to the decision to work in-house rather than going outside to an outside firm?
Honestly, we wouldn't have been able to do it without KJ. I say all the time that he is a unique talent in the industry because he could be freelancing and working for dozens of teams and, probably making more money and working less hours because he wouldn't have to be at the ballpark until 11 p.m. finishing up Saturday night games post fireworks. But he loves the industry. He helped the Kings Queens transition to the Brooklyn Cyclones. He has done a tremendous job. And honestly, I couldn't do half my job without him. Aside from being a creative graphic designer, he's also our IT guy. He's also our person who oversees the press box where we have all of the video board, the graphics, the audio, the scorer, the line scoreboard, the PA announcer. He also helps us to write scripts and make sure that the way that the game is flowing makes sense. He helps to oversee the flight crew who throw the T-shirts and have fun at the field and get the crowd hyped up. So I cannot overstate how important KJ is to the team. And the fact that he was able to take what was old and make it new, and then do a couple of other things that I'm sure he'll speak on as far as the actual graphic design strategy, the cohesiveness for us as a brand, and also an homage to the Orioles. There are so many advantages that literally no other team in minor league baseball or any sports team probably in the world have that he offers. And to your point, Brandios does a great job for a lot of teams because they don't have someone like him.
That's a great point. Typically there's always pushback against a rebrand. And I wonder if the fact that this introduction was sort of gradual, that folks had seen this mark around the ballpark already before it became the full-time primary brand, helped ease that transition, or was there pushback anyway and people want Angry Bird back?
No, there was not really much pushback, especially inside the ballpark, because the Ace the Jet logo looks enough like the old logo. The people who were traditionalists, the people who were original IronBirds season ticket holders in 2002, they gravitated towards it, and we're doing tremendously well in merchandise the last 2 years, which obviously is an incentive for teams to rebrand to begin with.
Mhm.
But to be honest, the biggest pushback came from inside the organization, because people were worried about what fans would think and how they would react. And when I introduced the brand to Cal and Bill, who I love working for, and the Ripken family are so tremendous as far as being owners and being supportive and giving us the resources we need to achieve, minor league baseball success. Bill goes, well, I kind of like the other logo. It's kind of badass. And I go, yeah, man, it totally is. And that logo is not going away. We'll still have merch with that logo, but this logo is fun and friendly, and it helps kids to engage with it, and it's not scary looking. And he goes, okay, well, you're the minor league baseball guy, so good luck. And I'm lucky that, people have gravitated towards it. So your point about gradualness, and also, the harking back to the previous logo, all of those things together have really helped. And then, it's taken off where we're sending hats to California and Minnesota and Canada and all over the place, has helped as well.
So you mentioned Cal and Bill. Obviously, this is the Ripken family, and they're involved with this team. And in fact, if I understand, if memory serves, there was a movement when the team was first created that they would be called the Iron Men, in favor of, Cal Ripken, obviously the Iron Man. But Marvel had a problem with that. And so is that this was before your time, but have you heard that story? Is that legend, or is that real?
That's not surprising to me, and if true, would not be surprising either. I think that there's a couple of factors that probably played into that, and I've not heard that before, but it makes sense. I think that Disney or Marvel, I suppose, because Disney at the time did not own Marvel in 2002. I think there probably was a little bit of hesitation about that, and if anything, it was probably a conversation where everyone agreed that that wasn't the right move. But the other thing that I think is a factor is honestly that Cal has always been very clear that the IronBirds and Ripken Stadium and his legacy in Aberdeen is not about him. It's about his family. It's about his father. It's about the legacy that the Ripken family is leaving behind in baseball. When you talk to him about, Ripken Stadium specifically, he says Ripken Stadium is not named for me. It's not named for Cal Ripken Jr. It's named for the Ripken way. It's named for doing things the right way, the way that Dad would want to do it. He always calls him Dad. Because Senior was a tremendous influence in his life, obviously, but in the lives of people in this community and around the country. Cal Senior had youth baseball clinics that he would do in towns around the country, not only when he was a minor league manager, but a major league manager. He would go out into the communities of teams that he was traveling to on the road and put on youth baseball clinics in cities. This is decades before reviving baseball in inner cities or any kind of, youth baseball clinic that teams were putting on as part of their community relations. This was what Senior wanted. He genuinely cared about growing the game and having it engage with the youth baseball in the world, which obviously helped Cal and Bill to start the Cal Ripken Senior Foundation as well, which those folks do a tremendous job. So even if it's true that we were playing with Iron Men as a concept, I think it plays too much to, people wanting it to be about Cal Jr. and less about what this team means to the community and to their legacy in baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I remember that was part of the story as well, is that Cal Ripken Jr. did not want a team named for him, even though he was part of the ownership group. So the use of color with not just the IronBirds, but all of the Orioles affiliates has always been interesting. I feel like even before the realignment of minor league baseball, that the Orioles have always had a group of affiliates that were as close to the parent club as any, right? And so right now that's the Norfolk Tides, the Bowie Bay Sox, the Delmarva Shorebirds, and then you all as the IronBirds. This new brand that you're using now has less orange in it than previous brands. It has some orange in it, but it was, if you were to look at it, you would say this if you're placing it on the color wheel, it goes on blue rather than on orange.
For sure.
Was there a conversation about, paying tribute to the parent club by using a little bit of orange, but establishing your own identity with blue? Or was it just because that's what color a cartoon fighter jet might be?
Well, there was definitely an homage with the Orioles, and I'll let KJ speak on our word mark and the way that our script interacts with the Orioles specifically.
Mhm.
The blue, I think, is a little bit about the old IronBirds color palette back in 2002. We had light blue jerseys, we had light blue hats that I desperately want to try and get a hat, get my hands on the original IronBirds hat. But I'm a 7 1/4 in case any of your listeners are interested. But the old palette was very much light blue, sky blue, planes fly in the sky. It gave us an opportunity to incorporate orange, which was not part of that original palette, but was part of that 2013 rebrand. It eliminated the black and the steel gray and or I should, I guess, say iron gray. And it gave us an opportunity to be much more fun, and it was definitely very intentional and gives us an opportunity to be a lighter, friendlier brand, but still leaning towards, yeah, there's orange in there. It's the Orioles, and we have the script word mark that looks similar, and we're still the IronBirds.
How much of a part of your identity is the fact that you're an Orioles affiliate, and how much of it is, you'd be the IronBirds regardless of, whether the Orioles played, an hour or two away?
Right, for sure. I think that the identity that we have is inherently tied to them. IronBirds still leans towards Cal as the Iron Man and the Orioles as the Birds. And I think that the best thing that we have going for us, at least in our community, is that the Orioles feel really strongly about their affiliation. And you were mentioning how all of their affiliates are fairly close geographically, since Utica and Bluefield were no longer affiliated with the Orioles. And that is beneficial because they bring out, major league alumni to our community events. Like they brought Boog Powell to our community event this past season, or this current season. They engage with us in their social media. They push highlights out of the prospects. They send their public relations people to cover our games when a prospect moves up for the first time, or if a rehabber is here. We're very lucky in that way. But I would say that the thing, and this is not a graphic design or logo related item, but the thing that's most important to us and that has been most beneficial to us is the caliber of person that they send to Aberdeen, both on the field and in the dugout. I just yesterday was lucky enough to be part of the ceremony where we gave Jake Lyons, Kyle Verbitsky, and Daniel Lloyd their Pitchers of the Month awards for May, June, and July, respectively, which is amazing that we had all 3 Pitchers of the Month the last 3 months.
That's cool.
We're very lucky to be in a great position prospect wise. And, I've done a dozen of these presentations over the last 5 years or whatever. And typically you hand them the trophy, they take a picture, they hand it back, you go put it in their locker. Each of those guys in turn thanked me for being part of the ceremony, for helping them receive their trophy, for, just something that I've got to do. That's and so the caliber of person that the Orioles send is so important. And I know for a fact, not to get too deep into it, I know for a fact that if a guy is a mediocre ball player but a tremendous person, he's going to get more opportunities to try and elevate himself professionally on the field than if somebody's a mediocre ball player and they're just not good to work with. They're just not a good clubhouse guy. That guy's not going to get as many shots. And so I'm tremendously appreciative of the Orioles for the way that they demand that their players conduct themselves on the field and off.
You say that that's not part of the logo or the uniforms or, the design, but it's all part of the brand, right? I mean, it's all part of the brand of the team and of the whole organization. And so, yeah, so I think that that's an important point to make about the IronBirds. Last thing, and then I'll get you out of here. The success of the Orioles this year has been a lot of fun. Like I said, I'm a Phillies fan. I went to a game in Philadelphia. There was a 3-game set. The Phillies took 2 of 3. I saw the third. I saw the one that they did not win. So the place was overrun with Orioles fans, and and it was a really fun atmosphere, right? Because the Orioles are fun to watch. They're young. Their defense is just terrific. I mean, they took so many runs away from the Phillies in the game that I saw. It must be exciting for you as a minor league affiliate located nearby. Probably you've got players who you either played with or have, seen come up through the team who are now part of this team. What sort of relationship do you have now as a fan or as a professional with the fact that the Orioles are having a certain amount of success right now on the field?
For sure. We're very fortunate to be 25 miles from Camden Yards because we have the opportunity to get rehab assignments. We have the opportunity for Orioles staff to come and be a part of IronBirds game day. And their success recently has definitely translated directly to ticket sales, revenue, and attention. When the Orioles are good, people are very aware of all the guys who most recently were IronBirds and who are now Orioles, and also the guys who are IronBirds now, who will eventually be Orioles. And the most obvious answer to that particular one is Jackson Holliday. Jackson spent 40 games in Aberdeen this year, and I have a little spreadsheet that I keep of, sort of game by game, how many tickets we sold, how many dollars was that. And I can tell you that there is a financial impact to Jackson Holliday just physically being present in Aberdeen. And so that was tremendously helpful. And so between the Orioles being arguably the best team in baseball, Jackson Holliday being the number one prospect in baseball, us being so close to our major league affiliate, there's so many reasons why we're thankful for that. And unfortunately, there are people who say, you know what, I'm not going to go down to Camden Yards. I'm not going to go down into Baltimore. I'm not going to pay for a toll through the tunnel. But we benefit from that. And so we encourage them to go see the big club and go see the guys who played in Aberdeen. But we're also thankful that the people who live in our community and around it are willing to come and see the future of Birdland. And we just are so excited for what is going to come next and the success that guys who played here, whether they were here for 3 or 4 days, or if they were here for a whole season, we're very lucky to have that be part of our legacy, going all the way up to the big leagues.
I said earlier in the interview that you were an hour or two from the big league club. I should know exactly where you are. I've driven past both Camden Yards and the IronBirds ballpark right there on I-95 more times than I care to count, back and forth between Richmond and Philadelphia. So 25 miles from Aberdeen to Camden Yards.
Yeah, I mean, it can be an hour if you pick the wrong time to drive, but
especially with that tunnel.
Yeah, exit 85 to exit 53, it's just not that difficult. And we're very lucky to have them as basically neighbors. I actually one time challenged the GM of the Bowie Bay Sox to a race. We would both get on a treadmill and see who could run the distance to the major league affiliate faster, because he's pretty close as well. And so Brian and I don't think we'll ever do it. We're all getting old now, but he and I have had a good back and forth on Twitter about that. And we're very lucky to all be part of the same neighborhood. And I'll give a shout out to my friend Andrew Klein in Frederick, who's also their former affiliate, but still considered part of the Orioles community, part of the Orioles family in Frederick. Andrew's exhausted. He's got 2 teams playing in the same stadium. But he does a great job and is a great example of a true minor league grinder.
Jack, this has been so much fun. Thanks so much for hopping on and talking about the IronBirds. This is a really fun brand. Where can people find you on Twitter? Where can people find the Aberdeen IronBirds on Twitter?
Sure. We are on all of the social medias: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We are on TikTok. I haven't made a Threads yet, but we are either at Aberdeen IronBirds or we are at IronBirds on all of those different social media. I am Jack Aaron Graham everywhere that you can find me. Jack, first name Aaron, Aaron, last name Graham, Graham, on social media. Please reach out. Please converse with me about minor league baseball. It's more than just a career. It's a passion, I think, for a lot of us. And please come visit us here at Lighthouse Field at Ripken Stadium. We've got 6 more games, September 5 to 10, and we'll be back next April.
Thanks so much, Jack.
Go Birds.
Go Birds. That means something different to me, but go Birds.
Yes.
All right. Joining me now is the Director of Creative Services for the Aberdeen IronBirds, KJ Jimenez. KJ, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, man, this is such a pleasure to get to speak to you. This is such a fun brand. It made a big splash when it was unveiled officially as the full-time brand, although Jack and I talked in the previous segment about how this brand was sort of introduced slowly with the sort of trickle effect over time. But it's been well received. It's a return to the team's roots, and it's a really fun brand. So I appreciate you coming on and taking the time to chat about the process that you went through to develop it.
Yes, it was a slow rollout for what we wanted to do for the rebranding, I guess. I guess it was just more really a couple of ideas that we wanted to use in certain areas. For example, we would post it in our at the time when we were still printing our program, we would kind of like float the jet in there, Ace the Jet. That's the logo's name, and kind of see if there was going to be any initial feedback or what's this, or hey, that's kind of cool, or whatever. And we did get some of that, but there really wasn't anything settled in terms of what we wanted to do. So we just kept developing it, and as time went along with putting it together, the idea of wanting to, like you said, get back to where the team was when it first started in terms of having the jet, and then eventually linking ourselves in a more direct way with the Orioles. Finding the putting the script together and working in correlation with the Orioles design team as well to get to that point of hey, this looks pretty good.
Jack and I spoke about the origin of the nickname relating directly to the Ripken family and Cal Ripken's Iron Man nickname. We actually did not mention that part of the reason for the nickname is that the Aberdeen Proving Grounds are a nearby military facility that the military uses for testing equipment, and so the jet obviously is a very important feature. We've talked about how there was a cartoon ace, a kind of pointier cartoon ace originally with the team, and then this sort of curvier, softer version of the jet that you created, but very much an homage to that original logo. As you've talked about, you introduced this cartoon character, this jet that was an homage to the original logo slowly over time. What was the original impetus for creating that jet character?
Well, initially, of course, it was to get back to what the team's original look was, and people loved the plane from the original logo. So and it was it had a lot of elements that, at least to me, it looked like they were with the blue eyes that they were referring to the Ripken. So I wanted to kind of remind people of, since they love the jet so much originally, it's going back to that design philosophy of reminding people what they loved, but just updating it. And giving them that feeling of, oh, I know this, but it's a little bit better now. And having people kind of reconnect themselves to that was my main idea, and making the plane all just as simple and easy to reproduce, and have the same sort of like lines and feel, where it was friendly to look at it, but also giving you a lot of action, and making you feel like hey, this is something that I can wear as an adult, or I can put on a hat as an adult, but it doesn't look too youthful that I look silly, having it as a T-shirt or a hat or whatever. It's still very minor leaguey in that respect, but also it's fun to have as a hat or a T-shirt, or anything that you might have the logo on.
Part of your story individually is that you were with the Brooklyn Cyclones for many years. Was it 18 seasons that you were with Brooklyn?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. So you were with Brooklyn for, almost 2 decades, and, working in a very different market with a very different brand as an in-house designer. How did that experience, that longevity with one team, inform decisions that you made, processes that you went through coming to a new team in Aberdeen?
My experiences with Brooklyn were life-changing. And what I mean by that is the ability to be steeped in such baseball history without even doing anything, as a designer, or to that effect. And when I started there, I wasn't a designer. I was in operations, promotions. I was doing something else. Then an opportunity presented itself where I can be the graphic specialist, and that happened. And then I just went on from there. But the idea of the rich history of baseball in Brooklyn, and me loving baseball in itself, and on top being a Mets fan, being connected to a team that was very special to me, that motivation of wanting to produce work over time, that opportunity gave me time to find what it is that baseball design, or I should say, sports design means not only to the people who are Brooklyn fans, but myself, a designer. I grew as the team grew,
Mm.
as the history of the team in Brooklyn grew. So it was a huge influence with the opportunity that Steve Cohen, the GM at the time, now the VP of the Cyclones, and other people who gave me the opportunity to kind of like spread my wings and try different things and be creative. And some things didn't work, but some things did. And those things, thankfully, I still see have stuck since I've left. But it was a transformable place for me as a designer, but also someone who was working in sports.
Absolutely. One of the things that the Cyclones sort of excel at is these promotional nights, really, the fun, like Seinfeld things that they do. Now that you have fully entrenched yourself with the IronBirds, are there alternate brands that you're working on? Are there things that we might see from the team with, the food frenzy, or, any other brands coming up that you're working on that you're allowed to talk about?
Well, coming up for, if you're talking about 24, I'm not going to
Of course.
reveal any of that, but
Yeah.
things that we have done previously over the last 5-6 seasons. We were the anglers in 2018. In this just recently, we were the cookies this season, Harford County cookies, the Chesapeake Bay decoys. We were this season. And let's see, the cookies. We were this kind of started before I was here, but I wanted to expand on it. The Aberdeen steamed crabs, which was very popular when it first started, and then we had different iterations when I got here. So, and then we kind of like straightened out what we wanted to do with it over the time that we were here. And there have been a few that we started here. The thing about Brooklyn, and the one thing that I definitely learned from them, is that there are signature events that they have here, like Seinfeld, which is a huge, wonderful thing. And I was very, very fortunate to be a part of that whole theme when it first started. I didn't come up with the idea, but be able to contribute graphically about what we put on the video board or anything that we would promote social media wise, or flyers, etc. Gave me the ideas of what we need to do to step something out on our end to find a signature thing for us going forward. We had the anglers, we had the cookies this year, we had the decoys, which is pretty special because it's very unique to the area because of the history of decoy making here in Aberdeen and Havre de Grace specifically, which is just down the road from Aberdeen, but also the steamed crabs, which is very much a Maryland thing, and it gave me more of an idea of what gets incorporated into what the team is about. It's people in Maryland love their state, they love their flag, they love crabs, they love the bay, they love so many things about it that I think that was a part of what needs to be added to the logo, especially the outline of the state and the flag itself, like I said. So that got incorporated into other alternate logos that we ended up adding into our logo set.
You're absolutely right about the Marylanders loving their flag. You see it a lot. You see it a lot in sports branding. I live in Colorado, which is a place that loves its flag as well. You see flags, you see the Colorado flag sort of on everything. I grew up in Pennsylvania. I grew up outside of Philadelphia. I don't know that I could tell you what the Pennsylvania flag even looks like. So that's in terms of just getting back to the IronBirds brand itself, being so close to Camden Yards and, being an Orioles affiliate, but also in terms of minor league baseball, wanting to establish a unique individual identity. I love that the Orioles have 4 affiliates that are pretty close. None of them are called the Orioles, right? Where, for you, how do you walk that line between paying homage to the parent club and to the fact that the fan base in Aberdeen is, almost certainly going to be Orioles fans? but then also establishing a unique identity for that team.
Trying to walk the line of paying homage to the Orioles, but also keeping our own identity was kind of broken down in this kind of perspective. Having the orange and the script used in different ways in the logo, IronBirds in Aberdeen for the road uniform. Those were prominent design structures that called immediately to the Orioles. Moving away from the black and adding blue instead just shifted the affiliation of who we are in terms of what the logo represents. So black is one of the best colors that any team can use for a team to make a statement of who they are and the gravity of where they are and their logo. I wanted to use blue to keep it more about hey, blue was used in the previous logo, and it was part of the original logo. So it kind of moved away from the blue in the second version, and I wanted to bring it back. So having the blue and the orange, having the same contrast that the black and the orange have, but more returning to what the logo was originally, the original logo, where it was more blue and orange and to that extent.
All right. I want to ask you one more question before I let you go, and it has nothing to do with the logo. It has nothing to do with the team. But I was reading your bio on the team website before you came on, and it says that you like to create synthwave music, customize cars, fix computers, and watch a wide variety of genres from engaging documentaries to terrible B movies. That's a lot of hobbies. That's a lot of interesting, diverse activities to sort of keep you busy there. Does your synthwave music ever make it to the field? Do your customized cars ever show up in any sort of promotion? What how do those hobbies affect your day job at all, or are they just things you do for yourself?
They're mainly things that I do for myself. It's I'm being a little creative there with what I posted in my bio there. It is true though. I do those things. Yeah, the cars are for myself. I have 3 cars, and one of them is a 1999 Firebird, which originally was my father's.
Nice.
And I've been upgrading that as time goes along since I got it from him. And I just recently got a 2004 Jetta GLS.
Nice.
And I'm like ripping it apart so I can put LED in here, and I can like upgrade the radio there, and and I'm finding out a lot about. I love German cars, so that's part of that process. But yeah, I have keyboards at home that are like 15, 20, 30 years old that I've held on to since I used to be I had a production contract when I was just out of college in music, and I was in the recording studio, and I was doing a whole bunch of stuff. It went nowhere, unfortunately. But I used to DJ and do all this other stuff. So that part of me is still kind of like it's still out there. Sounds that I created years ago, I still have on floppy disk.
Nice.
So, yeah, so that kind of stuff, and watching these movies. And these different types of entertainment that vary the range of one thing to another.
Yeah.
These terrible B movies that are so engaging for what they offer, and they stimulate my my way of approaching other things that I do primarily. In this case, like with design, it simulates my imagination. When I see something horrible in one of these terrible movies, but be informed in something else that's that's moving and very impressionable from these documentaries, and knowing the connection of the humanity, the humanity that we all carry within us, sometimes can be found in something that you're looking at, as simple as a sports logo.
Yeah.
And trying to build a device such as a logo, a piece of artwork, a jersey, a hat, can plant the seed of a memory that will bring somebody back 20 years from now. That's something that I designed that I completely forgot about.
Yeah,
means something special to them, and they always have it with them. And, as a designer, I think that's important to remember that you may make something that is a throwaway, or you're not paying that much attention to, or means a lot to you. Someone is going to make a connection with what you're making. And that is important for you to remember as you're putting something together, that will influence them one way or another.
I mean, I think that's, I asked the question because I was intrigued by, the sort of variety of interests, but it reinforces something that I've always believed, which is the best thing a graphic designer can be is well-rounded, right? And so all of these things, you're taking apart cars and computers and putting them back together, is very systematic and creative at the same time. Telling stories through music and movies and that sort of thing informs, I would think, the storytelling process that you go through with the video boards, the logos that you create. And so, I asked the question kind of as a joke, just because I was intrigued by it, but I also I love the answer that all of this informs for a designer to be well-rounded and have, diverse interests like that. I think really, brings value and perspective to the work that you do. So I don't know. I think that's pretty cool. Now that we sit here and talk about it, I think that is very cool.
Thank you. The whole idea of like taking parts, a computer or a car, just the problem solving part of it that, every designer has to go through.
Yeah.
In putting something together, I'm using the same sort of process in the way that I'm expressing myself with a computer, or with music, or fixing whatever, a light bulb, installing an LED here when when it used to be something else. That kind of thing makes me feel satisfied that I've approached the problem the same thing that you would as a designer, and trying to improve on it, trying to make it better, trying to make your life easier. In a way, by what you're doing, and and the satisfaction of making it work, or saying like, hey, I figured it out, or I'm doing something unique and different. Swapping out a incandescent bulb with an LED really doesn't say, hey, that's a unique thing to do, but more in the way of it couldn't be done the way it was set up, or properly, or how it was made like 20, 30 years ago. But you're installing something and then figuring out a way of making it work. That process, can be applied to just about anything, and obviously in design as well.
Yeah. Well, I replaced temporary tags with a permanent license plate, so I'm no slouch either when it comes to this stuff. So. KJ, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for coming on and talking about all this, and talking about your design work, and also your varied other interests outside of design. And we appreciate having you on, and I hope to get to a game in Aberdeen and enjoy one of the ice cream helmets with your Ace the Jet logo on there. So thanks again, KJ.
Thank you. I appreciate it. To be on something like this is it's wonderful. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate you taking that time. Welcome back, everybody. It is time once again for your favorite, my favorite, hopefully Dan's favorite, the Studio Simon Stumpers segment of Baseball by Design. Designer extraordinaire of Studio Simon, Dan Simon. Dan, how are you?
I am flippin' fantastic.
Flippin' fantastic. We've added an adverb to the adjective this time, so that's good to know. We are talking about the Aberdeen IronBirds today. This is a fun brand, and I got to speak with KJ Jimenez for the first time ever on this podcast, and so that was really fun. A new designer to feature on this podcast. And now I get to talk to you again, as I do every week on Studio Simon Stumpers. We're going to talk about airplanes. We're going to talk about maybe the Marvel Iron Man movies, or maybe we'll talk about Cal Ripken Jr. We can talk about Billy Ripken baseball cards. I don't know what this is going to be. So let's, I'll hand it over to you, Dan Simon, wearing a Fort Myers Miracle Classic with the M and the palm tree. That's a great hat that you're wearing right now.
Well, thank you. It is no longer this team's brand identity. They're, of course, now the Fort Myers Mighty Muscles. And Coincidentally, the identity about which this episode of the Baseball by Design podcast is centered was also a former Studio Simon identity. And speaking of Billy Ripken, he was the one who gave the creative direction on that identity. But alas, it was replaced by the one you talked about earlier in this episode. So things come and go, Paul. They come and go.
So that the Sam Eagle Sirius bird logo was yours?
Yes, the one that he looked like an iron bird, and Bill Ripken's direction specifically was the first Iron Man movie had just come out, and he loved it, and he said, "I want something that feels like Iron Man." So if you weren't talking about the logo, but if you can maybe picture it, in the primary logo, the eagle has wings that spread out, and there are flames coming from beneath the wings, not out like the back, like it would on a jet flying through the air, but lifting off vertically like Iron Man would. That's where that came from. And that was Bill Ripken's direction.
This feels like bonus content that should only be available for subscribers. If only I had subscribers.
Your OnlyFans followers.
Yeah. It's so far I've yet to lure any in with me wearing a tank top talking about minor league baseball logos on my OnlyFans site. So I might need to pump up my advertising for that. So Dan, this is already off the rails here. Let's bring it back in. Honestly, I'm constantly discovering new logos that you've created that I didn't realize were yours. And here we go again. I did it again. Now, though, we're talking about, in general, the franchise in general, maybe not specifically that logo, but the franchise in general, the Aberdeen IronBirds.
Well, and we mentioned Iron Man, and
Mhm.
of course, Cal Ripken Jr.'s nickname, for good reason, was the Iron Man.
Mhm.
Prior to him, of course, we had Lou Gehrig, who is known as the Iron Horse.
Mhm.
And what our Studio Simon Stumper today is going to reference is the original Major League Baseball Iron Man, who was Iron Man Joe McGinnity, who played 10 seasons from 1899 to 1908, and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame way back in 1947. So though he, quote unquote, only played 10 seasons, in those 10 seasons, he averaged 344 innings pitched. To put that into perspective, it's kind of a notable accomplishment nowadays if a pitcher goes 200 innings in a season. So to average 344 innings over 10 years is quite a difference. And thus the name Iron Man Joe McGinnity. In 1903, he pitched a career high 434 innings for the New York Giants. Check this line out. In that season, he pitched in 55 games, 48 of which were games started, and 44 of those were complete games. Just craziness.
That is insane.
But that 434 innings, that's not a record for most innings pitched in a season. So with that in mind, our Studio Simon Stumper today asks, is the major league record for most innings pitched in a season in the 400s? Is it in the 500s? Or is it in the 600s?
So 444 feels that's what you said his high was, Joe McGinnity?
434.
434 was Joe McGinnity's high. And that sounds pretty darn high. He had all those complete games. He had 48 games started, 44 complete games. It's hard to imagine beating that by like more than 10 or 20%, which would still put you, well, if you beat that by 20%, you'd be barely in the 500s. I can't imagine getting into the 600s. I mean, there's only so many games in the season that you can actually start. So I am going to go with, I'm going to say there was some extraordinary season where someone started and finished more games than that. I'm going to say that someone made it into the 500s. I think the 600s is too far of a stretch. I'm going to say 500s.
I was figuring that's what you would guess. And I'm sorry to inform you that as hard as it is to believe, the answer is 600. And it was actually closer to 700. So check this out. Now, this was in 1879. Baseball was a very, very different game than it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Think about how different the game of baseball is today compared to 20 years ago. The way pitching is, the number of innings pitchers pitch, the number of strikeouts that batters rack up. So the answer is actually, I gave the answer. It's 600s. In 1879, Will White of the Cincinnati Reds, he pitched a whopping, are you sitting down?
Here I am. You can see I'm sitting down.
Well, that was for our listeners. So,
I see. That was for effect. I thought you were literally asking me if I was sitting down.
Okay. He pitched a whopping 680 innings.
Wow.
He pitched in 76 games, 75 of which were games started, and all 75 of those were complete games. Craziness. And here's what's amazing, as if that's not amazing enough. Those 434 innings pitched by Iron Man Joe McGinnity, that was topped 144 times in baseball history, meaning 13 times pitchers pitched 600 plus innings. Another 59 times pitchers pitched 500 plus innings. So it's crazy. The last time a pitcher topped 300 innings was in 1980.
Great year for baseball.
For Philly fans, especially. We're talking 43 years ago. And speaking of the Phillies, that's when Steve Carlton of the Philadelphia Phillies pitched 304 innings. So that was 43 years ago. And the most in the live ball era, that means since 1920, was in 1972 when Wilbur Wood, a knuckleballer for the Chicago White Sox, threw 376 2/3 innings. I remember, I'm dating myself, but I remember that season, and I remember Wilbur Wood pitching in both ends of a doubleheader then. That's something you won't see. Now, keep in mind, he was a knuckleballer, so his arm did not go through the wear and tear that a Bob Gibson or a Steve Carlton's arm would have. So
the fact that 144 people have topped that number since then kind of feels like 100 years from now, if there were 144 people who had played more consecutive games than Cal Ripken did. That's what that feels like to me, especially since the guy had the nickname the Iron Man. So that's all of those stats are sort of mind blowing to me. I wonder if in 1879 someone could throw 675 innings because they were throwing the ball 40 miles an hour, right? I just wonder how different the game was, and they're throwing that grapefruit.
That's not even something to wonder about. That was indeed the case. Now, they weren't throwing the ball necessarily 40 miles per hour, but nobody was topping 100 back then. And I have seen, you go on YouTube and you can see video of like the 1952 World Series, whatever. Right. And the pitches are just, it's kind of close to like lobbing the ball in, right. They are not throwing heat. They didn't. And so, you go back to the turn of that particular century. By the way, of all of those instances of pitchers pitching, throwing more innings than Iron Man Joe McGinnity's 434 innings in 1903, all but one of those instances happened pre-1900. So,
Okay.
you know,
What's really interesting is how rare Tommy John surgery was in the late 1800s.
well, I'll tell you what's astounding is how common it is today. I was looking the other day about looking at the current injured list, and it is astounding how many pitchers are out for the season with arm or shoulder related injuries. Their pitchers are dropping like flies.
It makes it pretty hard to manage a fantasy baseball team, which, by the way, I am uniquely terrible at. I am not a good fantasy baseball player. I still enjoy it for the social aspects, but man, don't ever bet any money on me winning at fantasy baseball. Dan Simon, thank you so much for coming on and bringing this great information and enjoyable conversation. And now I have a third person to associate with Iron Man, in addition to Robert Downey Jr. and Cal Ripken, and now Joe McGinnity. Dan, thanks very much. We'll see you next week.
You're welcome. See you then.